Slavery is the most evil form of turning people into objects. Every Episcopal church that dates back to that era, and all of us, by our connection with it, have some blood on our hands. At least in the sense that if we don't understand it, we can't change what we're doing. We will continue to objectify people in our daily lives. I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. Mid-1961, we moved there 3 weeks after the Freedom Riders got beat up. But I remember going to the airport in Montgomery and going to the wrong fountain and being told, no, 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 you go over here. It was very dissonant, even at age 8. I grew up friends of some of the children of the white players in Montgomery who were actually the antagonists to the civil rights movement. In a very real way, I had like a 10th row seat to what was going on. I remember all the state troopers driving out of town to go to Selma before the march. The sort of neighborhood bullies, they had their guns in their front window just in case the marchers came back down our street and started causing trouble. So the whole town was on edge, and I remember that really clearly. But I also remember being on hot sidewalks and seeing African Americans walk to the other side. They had to make way for white people. That's what Jim Crow was all about. Make way for white people. It was a time for a child of feeling everything's topsy-turvy. And I knew it was wrong, but I was there watching it. And with kids whose families were very much involved in negative ways. I come from a family that has been in this country for a very long time. Many generations of Virginia, South Carolina, Mississippi slaveholders, probably 24 Confederate officers. Most of that I've discovered because my parents didn't talk about our Confederate history much. I'm not even sure they really knew much about it. Growing up in the tensions of the civil rights battles going on in Montgomery, even though I felt an inner dissonance, I participated in some of that. And it was when I became the family genealogist that I began to discover just how deep our family's involvement in enslaving people was. Plantations in Virginia, plantations in southern Mississippi. I think my great-great-great-grandfather went to church with Jefferson Davis. Episcopal church, mind you. I simply began to realize that if I was going to be faithful to God's call to me as a reconciler, that I couldn't let that history just lie there. I had to be somebody who was going to be finding ways to heal, to repair, to reconnect. I felt pretty much silenced and numbed as we've gone through these castles and through the Pecora slave camp. I don't know that I have the resources within me to respond adequately to that kind of suffering. And the Anglican Church in Ghana is across the street from here. When you see how many hundreds of thousands, millions of people came through these places and sat in those dungeons, and then to come and to meet whips, to have your name taken from you, I can only be certain that my ancestors did that to people. So I have to shift course. I've got work to do. Some of it is channeling the pain that I feel in seeing this, the knowledge of my family's complicity, the reality of children in my world never having their gifts raised up. My inner sense of urgency to be about that conversation has just filled me in this place. I don't see the work of racial reconciliation as in any way separate from my call to the priesthood. I think that sometimes the conversation our church has had about race has been part of our way of processing the shame that we feel, the blame that we want to assign, and really hasn't brought us to the point yet of going deeper into the kind of personal conversations that really begin to convert us to a new way of thinking and to change our hearts toward one another. There's a part of me that thinks we need to get past just talking about race, about justice. We need to live it. We need to bring our lives so deeply into that conversation that the objectification that slavery is the ultimate expression of is replaced by a complete I-thou relationship. I'm in relationship with you because you're created in the image of God. That's holy. You have gifts that God has given you that I've been blind to. The readiness for the conversation and the readiness of the church for that conversation, I think, starts with a good look in the mirror. Am I ready to tell my story that's painful, that's hopeful? Am I ready to hear your story that's painful, that's hopeful? I'm ready. I'm ready to do that work.